Hi everyone, I'm Devin and this is Courtney, and we are going to talk to Jess, the carnivore mummy today. Jess, welcome. Will you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, girls. I've basically, in terms of my carnivore journey, I've been full carnivore since January this year, 22. And for the last kind of year and a half to 2 years, I went heavily meat based first and then slowly transitioned over to full carnivore. So that's kind of my journey. In terms of health, like I've been in the health and fitness industry for almost 20 years. So this is my 20th year. And obviously at university and stuff, I was traditionally taught with the normal nutritional practices that kind of go along with the typical food pyramid that's still being advertised today. And I've had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned at university and in those papers and in those, certifications. It's been quite a massive journey for me, but I'm in like the best health and fitness that I've ever been in my life. And it's not following those mainstream practices. So it's been a real interesting one. And I've had quite a lot of like different I don't know what the word is, but like lashback from different types of people about these choices that I've been making, especially over the last few years. Which I understand, but it is just, like I was talking to a friend about it yesterday, and she's gone from vegan to carnivore because of me. And she said, it just seems so mad that we are the weird ones, that the way that we eat is classified as the strange. It's been great. It's been so amazing. My family is all carnivore as well. So I've got three little girls, 10, 7, and almost 2. It has had some real amazing changes to their health as well since they've gone this path as well.
Now, what is your degree in?
So it's in sports.
Okay.
Yeah, so like at uni, we did lots of different papers in sports nutrition and obviously all that side of food that were just completely backwards and irrelevant. It's been, I was really lucky, to be fair, that I had a teacher at university that also told me straight away to question everything. Where has this research come from? Who funded that research? What, were there any biases? Like we looked at all those things. So I was taught to question things. Whereas I know, in most typical universities these days, you're not allowed to question a thing. You have to go along with exactly what's put out there and what's said. Otherwise, you don't get the grade or you don't pass. Back when I was at school, you actually got taught to question things and ask questions. And so I'm quite lucky because I have had an open mind about it. And I mean, if you look back on my social media and stuff, I was literally the veggie queen. I absolutely promoted vegetables on a huge scale to a lot of people, which is why, when I've transitioned over to this way, and people just think, is it just another fad? What's she doing now? Is it just something, but this is the most free I've ever felt about food in my whole life. So even before university, I always struggled with my health. I had real big health issues, to be honest. I had intestinal problems. They thought that I had a rare form of cancer. They thought I had Crohn's disease, Paget's disease. I had, colonoscopies, all sorts of investigations. I actually went vegetarian for a year. It made me really depleted and pretty sick. And it was my mum who basically said to me, you can do this for a period of time, and if your health goes down the gurgler, then you will be eating meat again. I've tried dietitians, nutritionists. I mean, I used to weigh my food at one point. I was completely obsessed with food. And now I have absolutely no connection. There's no connection to food. I feel utterly free. I never have cravings. I never, you know, it's never that I am at the whim of what my body is asking me for or what my mind is asking me for. This has been the best thing for me about going this way and eating this way, is that there's no more hang-ups. There's no more thinking about it. There's no more overanalyzing it. I just simply enjoy what I'm eating. I get nourished by what I'm getting. And I feel extremely grateful to finally be at this point with my food journey where I feel like it's at the end. Like I've taken 20 years to kind of go through all the different crap that's out there. And also not only case study on myself, but I've case studied on thousands of clients. Like everything I do, I always try on myself for a period of time before I recommend it. And this has been the most transformational. And I'm like, yes, I finally found the end of the road for me. And now I just stay here and it's just an easy one. And
It's like a fountain of youth.
it really is. It really is. And I'm so excited. I'm turning 40 next year. And I'm like, I can't wait to turn 40 because I'm going to be in a better health and better condition than I am right now. And I'm like super excited to see what that looks like. It's not like, oh my God, I'm turning 40. I'm like, yeah, imagine what I'm going to look like when I'm 50 and
Yeah.
60. And yeah, so it's really exciting. It's a really exciting place to be in now with food. So
I was just telling Courtney before this, I just turned 30 and I was like, oh my God, 30, like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I legitimately feel like I'm 20 years old still. Like, I don't feel old at all. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing in my life. I think that's how everyone feels their entire life. But like, you feel so youthful. Like Courtney, you went from like intuitive eating, like a balanced diet, and how like you feel amazing too. So you just feel like energetic and free and hyper and energetic and wild all the time. I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, free's the key word. And like you said, you like finally at the end of the road, I feel like the yo-yo has been going up for the last, I mean, 20 years. I'm 38. It's been going and now it's like, oh, yo-yo can stop. Like I finally found like what works for me. And I'm finally like focused on the health and not the weight, whereas everything else was weight related in the past. But I do want to know, because you're talking about school and stuff. So I'm assuming at the time, like when you were being taught, like, you know, the food pyramid, all that, that you were on board with that because you said you recently started going towards more meat. So what made you kind of question everything you learned in school and like start going against that?
yeah, well, it's quite a funny story actually because I've just moved back to New Zealand. I'm from New Zealand originally, but I've been in London for the last 13 years prior to that. And so I did my study originally in New Zealand, and then all my postgrad stuff's been overseas. But basically, my fiance, he is a gigantic nerd. He loves to research. He loves everything kind of to do with the human body. And because we both specialize in neuromuscular function, health and fitness and food is just part of our fun. Like we're a bit lame like that. Like he's like, oh, have you read this? Have you seen this? That? Like we're both really nerdy. And he had said to me, oh, babe, I'm doing a lot of reading at the moment about carnivore, blah, blah, blah. You know, he sent me some links. He said, watch this, read that. And I was like, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to do all those things. And he just kind of kept pestering me about it. And he said, oh, I'm watching this guy on YouTube and he's a scientist and he's really amazing. And he's a Kiwi guy as well. And he really reminds me of you. And I was like, oh yeah, what's this about? And he goes, yeah, he's Kiwi. He's got a really bad potty mouth because I swear a little bit. And he's really, really blunt. You should watch him. He's hilarious. And his content and his knowledge is insane. So anyway, he sends me this link and it ends up being Bart K.
I knew it. I knew it immediately. I love him. I had spoken to him. We just actually got him for this series too.
Oh,
so yes, we just talked to him. I talked to him yesterday because we have like kind of like a rapport now. I knew immediately when you said.
And that's like, I didn't realize he was keeping with that. That's how you explained him. Like, because she was even like, Courtney, he's kind of like you. Like, there's the potty mouth, there's the like sarcasm. So, okay, that's awesome. That was your intro.
The science, like He
Yeah.
has the science down, and
Yeah.
he explains it in such like an eloquent way that like even the dumbest of the dumbest is like, well, that kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, and because Courtney and I do not do science. Like, I'm not a science person. I love learning about it, but even I'm like, Courtney, you've got to watch Bart K. Like, he knows it. He's got it.
His knowledge, his brain is just, I mean, he's been one of the key teachers in my life, like him and the guy that I've learned the neuromuscular stuff from are my pillars of my foundation of knowledge. And I feel so blessed to have those two men in my life because, wow, their brains are just insane. So anyway, I got this link and I went, Bart K. I went, oh my God, I know him. And my fiance is like, what? And I was like, he was one of my teachers at university when I did my degree in sport.
No way.
Yeah. And so I've known Bart since I was 17, 18. And I was just like, when I said I knew him, my hubby had this full-on hat fanboy. He's like, what? You know Bart K? Oh my God.
And a very loyal following, yeah.
So I just, because I haven't spoken to him in, I don't know, 15 years or something. So I flicked him an email and just said, hey, how's it going? And like, he wasn't just a teacher to me. He was like, we were really tight at university. He was one of my actual mentors, which meant that when things didn't go right in my different placements and different things that I was in, that, you know, he had my back. You know, we've gone through a lot together. Like my thesis at university was all around basically, it was looking at fat and how we better utilize fat as a fuel through exercise via either resistance training or cardiovascular training. I wanted to know what was the most effective. And so that was my thesis at uni. So I did like, you know, 300 plus hours of study on these things and massive research. And he was my mentor for that. So, you know, we were back and forth. And I know what he's like. He ripped my papers to pieces and then got me to rewrite them. That, like, you know, I know him very well. So we're super tight. So I sent him a message and was like, hey, how's it going? And my fiance is like, do you reckon he'll remember you? And I'm like, of course. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we were tight. So yeah, anyway, we got back in contact. And that is literally how my carnivore journey started again. So I'd already, I started going full heavy based and cutting out vegetables. But I found it really, really difficult to let go of vegetables. And as I said, it was because I was so conditioned from what I learned at university, from all the different post-grad stuff that I'd done, from working with all these nutritionists and dietitians and stuff over the years, because I'd done it myself. So I was really resistant to letting go, and I didn't almost want to look, because what I was being shown and what was said to me really made sense. And you know, when you hear something and you know it's the truth and you're like, shit, I've been doing this all wrong. Not only have I been doing it wrong, but I've taught like a lot of other people to do it wrong too. And you have to like push your ego away and go, okay, I've got to jump on this bandwagon because I know it's the right one. And so yeah, so that was how I started looking at things. And obviously I got in contact with Bart again, and and it's just been a snowball from then. So actually it was all around my hubby finding this, and he actually went full carnivore for 3 months when I was still eating vegetables. So he was already ahead of the game before I finally begrudgingly clawing onto the wall trying not to do it. Yeah. I finally went, oh, for fuck's, excuse my language.
Oh, fine.
I'm gonna do this, and let's just see. So my progress was really gradual. Like I was like, okay, let's just first pull out all the high plant toxins. And, you know, I was having a lot of them in my world. And it's really funny because I always knew that we couldn't absorb nutrients from plants. And so I always did these processes of like sprouting nuts and seeds and the dehydration and the soaking and all the pieces. And I did nothing processed. Made my own like the coconut nut seed bread that I've made for years. I'd make all my own hummuses out of just vegetables and that kind of stuff. Like I never did processed foods. So and I knew that like grains were not good for us, but the whole vegetable thing, I found it really hard to grasp. And so first of all, when I learned all this stuff, I was like, okay, so let's just take out the most toxic ones first. Let's remake my bread with like take out the almond meal and the seeds, and let's bump up the coconut and try and play around, because I just didn't want to give it up. Like, and it was like, what am I holding on to? Why am I holding on to this? Like, what benefit is it actually even giving me? And it wasn't. It was just habit. It was my ego. It was, instant gratification of wanting these things because they taste good for a second, like. So I did it gradually, and then like it's so funny that I knew we had to soak and sprout seeds, for example, but I didn't even look at why we should be maybe not even eating them at all, like not even just trying to manipulate the variables so that our body can not be so affected in a negative way by eating this. It didn't even cross my mind to look further and go, should I even be putting this in my mouth at all? And you feel so stupid when you look back and you go, oh my God, like do those bits, and I ignored the rest. It's like, because it suited me. I wanted to do what I was doing. And so I found what I wanted to support my, you find evidence to support or back yourself up on what you want to do, good or bad. And that's what I did. So when I finally was like, okay, I need to actually cut these things out, it was a gradual transition over. And then, so I was pretty heavy meat based, as I said, for a while. And then I was having like the tiniest amount of plant matter still, maybe I'd say probably 10%, maybe 20% max. It was mainly meat. And that was in January when I went, okay, let's do the 90 days and actually see what that tiny bit of plant that I'm having in is actually doing, if anything. And I didn't really think it was going to do that much. Like, that's honest to God. I was like, I eat low oxalates. I choose this and that, it's not going to make that big a difference. And then I was like, oh my God, my body, as you guys have seen some from my photos, it completely transformed again. And I was like, wow, just taking out that tiny bit of low oxalate vegetables, it was quite shocking. And I did like the smallest amount of exercise that I've ever done in my life, because I train regularly, but I was doing maybe 1 or 2 of the smallest, barely anything workouts a week, because I just wanted to see what was the impact of changing the food, rather than being like, okay, well, which is it? Oh, she might be training more. It might be that she's doing this, that, and the other, as well as. So I did like really no training, and I had a significant change, obviously, in my body composition, and my inflammation, and my cellulite, and my skin, and everything. And I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. But the thing I found the best was the freedom that I felt from food. Like, yeah, great body comp, great looking and feeling better, but it was the fact that my cravings were non-existent. Like, I mean, nothing. If I was hungry and I didn't have an opportunity to eat, I was absolutely fine. And I could still train, do all my clients, be a mum, do all those things. And I'd get to 7 o'clock and I'd say to Anne, have I eaten yet today? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, have you seen me eat? He's like, no, I don't think I've eaten today. And you don't even know, because you're good. Your body can tap into what it's got stored on it. And you ride the wave of hunger, it's gone again, your body taps into your fat, and it's just so freeing. So I did the full 90 days, and then it was quite funny because the timing worked out that I finished the day before my 39th birthday. And so for my birthday, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a few things off plan. And I had like barely anything, and I mean really anything, because my hubby went all out. He made me like these amazing carnivore scotched eggs, and he made all like incredible stuff for me because he's just an utter sweetheart. But there were a few things that I had off, and I noticed multiple things. One, that I didn't like them. They didn't taste the same. And there was weird textural things as well that I didn't like. So for example, I had this chocolate bar and it's only like little, but it tasted waxy. It tasted like, it didn't taste like chocolate. It was really strange. And so my taste buds and sensations had completely changed. And also the next morning, I woke up instantly with cravings again. And I was like, are you joking me? I've literally not had a single thing. And then as soon as I put anything in my body, not only physically my body's going, give it, gimme, but my mind as well is like, I kept thinking about it all the time. And I was like, how is this back in here again? So that was a real eye-opener as well of going, okay, this isn't something that I want to do. So I mean, for me, carnivore is now just a part of life. Like I will never go, there's no back to anything. Like I just eat this way and I love what I eat. And it's a real, I think it's like the most delicious way to eat. I'm like, what is everybody, like when I tell guy clients about it and I'm like, right, I would strongly suggest you pulling out your vegetables and upping your fats and upping your meats. And they're like, are you joking? They're like, this is the best diet ever.
I had someone on YouTube comment, like, it was a video how I was like, the secret to, feeling your best and losing weight is just eat meat, like just eat meat. And someone commented, but then you can only ever eat meat. And I was shocked that I had a surprising amount of people go, yeah, it's literally the best thing ever. Like, it's just like, you have permission to eat as much meat as you want. And not only just meat, but like fatty, delicious meat too. Your steaks and your ribeyes aren't off because you're not doing a low fat diet, So yeah, I know Courtney is like all about that but Courtney, you get a lot of like, people ask you a lot, because I use a little bit of seasoning. So you use salt and people ask you all the time, like, do you miss seasonings?
Yeah, well, it's just like you said, like your taste buds have like changed eating this way. This reminds me, like I did keto for a while or paleo or whatever I was on where I didn't have like any sugar for a while. And I made this dessert that had Oreos and I used to love Oreos. And I remember eating them after not having sugar in so long. And like, I could taste like it just tasted artificial and whatever. I mean, because it is, but I just remember once you get rid of that, it really changes your taste buds. So I feel like I've heard this also, like when a smoker quits smoking and like their food is finally like alive. So for me, I feel like my tastes have changed. Like I've mentioned, I've had like a little piece of grilled onion slip in my burger at In-N-Out, and it was like, woo, like I haven't had this flavor in a while, but I had no desire to eat more. Like I'm fine without using all those plants and stuff. Like everything has just changed for me for sure.
Yeah.
Now, Jess, you're on social. I know you came to Courtney's defense the other day when there was a little altercation. I do have to ask, like, what do you say? Like, what is your go-to kind of pushback when you do get the pushback from those because the very traditional people who stay traditional, because I don't know if you get it a lot, if it's something that people get very upset with you about and you get a lot of pushback from other professionals.
I don't really, but then I think the Carnival Mummy page that I've got is literally only been up since I went full carnivore, so it's pretty new in terms of a page, whereas although I'm very vocal about my thoughts and feelings about food and that it is species specific and that's what we should be eating and thriving and doing, for some reason I haven't really had any trolls, like at all. Like everybody's been really lovely, but I don't even know what they're called. What's the third one? Twitter. And I'm not on the TikTok, and I'm not on like YouTube or anything. I only have my Instagram account. So there's only, there's limited ways that people can attack me. And it was interesting because when I went to Courtney's defense the other day on that lady's absolutely ridiculous post, you know, I had probably 10 or so people on me messaging. And I'm not used to that. And I thought, wow, for one, what a bloody waste of energy. Like, you know, because you really want to say stuff back, but the amount of time that I actually took to, you know, calmly write responses to these people, because the idea is not that I'm trying to prove that I'm right and they're wrong. It's more to help and hopefully inspire them to just open their minds just a tiny bit and question things. And like with my girlfriend who was a vegan, and I've changed about 7 over so far, and that's just from me just living my life, not from any me pushing it or anything. And one of them is actually our cleaner, right? So she's vegan, she's super lovely, and she hears Ant and I ranting about food and health and stuff all the time. And so she started, you know, to ask questions sometimes when she was cleaning. She'd be like, oh, what about this, Jess? And what about that? And then she's like, right, I'm going to try this because I'm sick of, she had health issues, she has energy issues, she's got 3 kids under 5, you know, she's depleted, but she was also quite overweight and had massive food addictions, like huge ones. And so she was like, oh, okay, well, I think I've been thinking I'm going to introduce meat back into my world. And I'm like, oh my God, really? Because I never push people. I just give them the information and let them see what they want to do. And she looks insane, like amazing. All of her health issues have gone away, like completely, you know, even when she has even less time or less sleep because of her kids, she's still got utter energy. She's just like, she's dropped probably about 4 dress sizes. Her skin's completely different and her life's transformed, and she will never go back. Like, she's just like, why would I eat another way? And when people make things for her, because she had a birthday recently, and when they made her stuff, she chose still not even to eat it. She's like, you know, I don't want to, because I don't want to give up how amazing I feel. Like, and for me, that's more important than anything else. And so, yeah, it's a funny one in terms of like rebuttal, because I just ask basic questions. I go, okay, reverse engineer, try and take yourself back. Like, what are we designed to eat? What would we have eaten primarily back in the day? You know, we were hunters, and when we couldn't hunt and kill something, we would forage when we were starving. But there wouldn't be a choice that you'd go, oh, I'm going to have berries instead of this animal that's been hunted. Like, you know, animals are celebrated, they are respected, and I utterly love and respect animals, which was part of the reason that I went vegetarian for that year. Was I didn't like the way the farming, that whole meat industry is disgusting, and I still stand really firm by that. I think it's disgusting. But there are other ways of sourcing your meat, and you need to do it in a really responsible way. And so, you know, we get home kill, we've visited the farms, we know how the animals are treated, we know what they're fed, we know how I've even watched one be put down. It is the kindest, most humane way of you know, killing an animal. And then I use every single part of that animal. So we use the bones, we make bone broth constantly, we use the feet, we'll use the, you know, like, we respect and love the animal for giving its life for us to thrive. But that is the circle of life, and that is meant to be how we live. And so, you know, I talk to people about basics like that, like, what would we have eaten back in the day? What did give us the most amount of nutrients? What can we absorb? What can our intestines absorb, in terms of like talking about how much waste product there is when we eat meat, which is like next to nothing. So we discuss all those pieces. I talk to people about those things with an open mind first, even down to, you know, if you look back at cave drawings, you know, there were pictures of animals, and people came together and celebrated that. There were no pictures of turnips or berries on the cave drawings. It's like, come on, you need to just try and open your mind up a tiny piece.
And that's, I feel like, the problem is the not open mind. And just a heads up, we have like 5 minutes left. So maybe we can kind of end on that. Like, why are people so resistant to question everything they're taught? And like, my understanding is when you go to become like a nutritionist or a registered dietitian, like a lot of that like information and stuff is like backed by like food companies that are not nutritious. So it's like, it's almost like they're just being taught things that aren't even true. So they're just regurgitating this information and they're blindly believing it. I don't know. Maybe we can touch on that as we wrap up. Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. With that was like with Bart. One of the major reasons that he stopped teaching at universities is because they're lying to people, and he was just like, I can't keep being in this profession where we're literally telling people falsities when we have all of the evidence to show that none of what they're saying is true, and it's being ignored and you're being censored. And it's just like nowadays as well, it's like that on steroids. Like you know the truth is hidden, and it is harder and harder to share information of truth. And that's quite scary, because I know that for me personally, I was always looking for the best way to be optimal, the best way to thrive. I wanted not just the best for myself, but for my clients as well. That's what I do. I always wanted to help people. And then looking at the practices that I used to tell people to take all the chicken skin off their chicken and throw it in the bin. I would tell people to stop eating bacon and have that artificial turkey bacon processed rations as a low fat option. I told them to eat all the light stuff, all the light cheeses, all the light milks, all the rubbish that I taught people, because that's, what I was taught. And I cringe because I'm like, oh my God, Jessica, like I was so wrong. And I'm cool with saying I'm wrong. Like, that's fine. But I have had people go, but hang on a minute, you used to really promote vegetables. So what are you banging on about now? Like, what is this about? And it's like, well, guys, I always knew that we couldn't absorb them. I always knew that, there were issues with even putting them in our body. I just didn't understand to what level. I ignored that next step because I thought I was so clever. I was like, yeah, I'm going to dehydrate and sprout these things, and look how clever I am, not realizing that actually you shouldn't even eat those things. Like, why are you trying to manipulate it so that you can even put it in your mouth? So it's a journey. But yeah, I think when people start opening their minds a little bit, it really starts to make sense. And then like you've said, and I've heard you say this multiple times, Courtney, just try it. Like, if you are skeptical about it, great, be skeptical, but go, do you know what, I'm going to case study this and see in 30 days how do I feel if I try this, because everyone's willing to try everything else. So why is this so scary? And yes, so we went for dinner last night, and it's really easy to order food as well. We just get burgers with no buns and no sauce and no crap, and we get brisket and we got pork belly and we got a few things. My youngest is, as I said, not quite 2 yet. She's sitting in her high chair eating, like a beef patty with cheese on top, and she's like loving every second of it. And I'm getting the most gnarliest looks from the people at the table next to me that have got their two twins, probably a little bit younger than my daughter.
Did you cut out? Did she cut out for you too?
Yeah.
Shoot. Okay, Jess, we lost you. Cut out. Oh, you're coming back. We lost you when the twins next to you were eating, what was it, mac and cheese? That's when it cut out.
Yeah, so they were eating like processed, packeted, crispy things, like puffed looking something. So she's giving him packeted crackery things and bread and stuff, and she's looking over at me, giving me these nastiest kind of gnarly looks, like, what is she feeding her child while my daughter's sitting there eating her cheeseburger? And this whole table next to us are ordering all this food, and it's really interesting because they look at their food and they think it's healthy, and they've got, they might have a chicken wrap and some chips on the side and then this and then that. And then somehow by me just pulling the meat out of that and just eating the chicken or just eating the cheese or the egg, somehow I'm the unhealthy one versus her with her plate full of all the carbohydrates. Like, we have got a real warped mentality when it comes to food as a society, like hugely. Like it's an epidemic of craziness with food. And it is going to take a real long time for that to change. And ultimately, most people have to try it first before they're willing to even consider that this is a healthy way of eating. But I think the best thing that we can do is just lead by example, be the example, show people that this way of living makes you thrive, like makes you the most healthiest. And I think if our intention is all to help people and best serve like humanity, then it's always going to come from a really good place, rather than it being a know-it-all place where I know this and you don't know that, and I'm better than you and you don't, because it's not about that. Well, it's not about that for me. It's just as long as the intention is coming from a good place. I think that just leading by example is the best way, and just to get people to just start questioning things like you said, and just opening their mind a little bit about food. Because when you look at it and you look at how our body utilizes it, and you look at all the mechanisms in the body, which I'm sure Bart's going to share with everybody and help people through, it makes you really realize that these things are made for us, and we should be extremely grateful. And if we respect animals and we all choose to do it the better way, then then it could be a completely different world when it comes to food. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I do find that sometimes you just have to tread gently, because the myths, especially around fiber, like that's a big one that I get a lot, is people like, but what about fiber? I need fiber in my diet. And I'm like, no, you don't need fiber in your diet. It's non-essential. And when you turn around to somebody and they go, well, you think you can get everything that you need from meat? And it's like, well, yes, because one piece of steak has every single essential nutrient that we need in it. And actually eating a balanced diet is eating a steak that is balanced. It's got everything that you need. And so I think once you start, and people don't believe you when you say that, you're like, by the way, this meat's got everything we need. They're like, what? No, surely not. And, I get asked a lot about what supplements I take. What supplements are you taking? I'm like, I don't take supplements. Like, I don't need anything, because my fuel, my food gives me everything that I need to thrive. So I think once you just start opening that can of worms, and the other thing is I've just moved back to the country after 13 years being away. And yes, okay, I'm in the health industry, but equally, I look younger, like people that I've caught up with on the street or seen and read, they're like, oh my God, Jess, you look the same as you looked, when you were younger, which obviously I don't, but, I haven't aged at the same level that they have. And the inflammation isn't there. And that's a huge thing, is inflammation. It warps the way that we look. And so, people start to look at you, and it'll happen, it'll be us in 10 years. People start asking us, what are you doing? Rather than it being us trying to push this message out that, we've been conned about food. And that is, again, one of the biggest lies that we've been told. And if you look at simply why, because people go, but why would they do that? And it's like, well, if you look at it simply, they can make a lot of money off these things. These fake, oh my God, don't get me started on fake meat. Oh my God. And then all the fake processed foods. It's like, okay, so you're turning around your whatever packet and all those ingredients, you can't even pronounce half of them, and you think that is better for you than eating this piece of meat. Like, it just shows how warped we are. And so I do have an understanding. Like, I don't get all huffy with people. I'm like, look, I get it. As I said, I was the veggie queen. I hear you. I really struggled with this as well. But if you look at all the pieces, if you look at the Randall cycle, if you look at how our body breaks down meat, if you look at the waste product after we've utilized that fuel, it's like, oh, okay. You've got to just be willing to open your mind a little bit. and obviously all my health issues have gone away. So I always struggled with my intestines. Like my gut health was always a problem, and that was me being paleo for almost 20 years. Like, you can't blame it on processed foods, you can't blame it on these things. And what I never would have considered is that all these bloody nuts and seeds and vegetables that I was eating was the thing that was causing my gastrointestinal problems. Like, I just never would have even considered it. So yeah, it's even me. And that was even me having a teacher at university that told me to question things. I didn't enough. So I don't judge other people for what they're doing or where they are currently, because I get it. I understand that it is hard to wrap your brain around. But I think once we understand that it's all just based around money and greed, because that's essentially what it's about. You don't have to have some evil person in the background, you know, wanting to take over the world. It's just a money greed issue when you look at it. And it's like, well, we can make a lot of profit off these foods, and we can market them, and they're addictive, and they are addictive. They are as addictive as drugs and cocaine. And we're going to get people hooked on these things, and we can make a ton of money. It's as simple as that. Like, what have I got to gain from promoting meat? Do you know what I mean? Like, nothing. I don't get any kickbacks off that. I don't have a farm industry and I'm promoting meat and this is the best. There is no reason for me to lie. It is that I have found this, and this is me actually properly searching for a better way of being for, 20 years, because I want to help people. And so if I can accept the things that I've taught people wrong and swallow my ego and swallow my pride, I've just got to tell people the truth. And the truth is, I was wrong about food for a really long time. And, I'm not sorry about that, because I did the best that I did with what I currently knew. But I think if I had been so close-minded, then I would have been sorry, because I would have been hurting people, knowing that it's harmful to be promoting this way of living, this way of eating, and carrying on doing it. And I wasn't willing to do that. So it makes me a little bit sad, because there are people in the industry that are trying to profit off carnivore, and it makes me a bit pissed off, because that whole side as well is, it's like, it's not about you. It's not about what you can get. This is about the fact that my middle child, who's just turned 7, that 90% of her class is pre-diabetic and doesn't know about it, that I will outlive my child's classmates. That's wrong. We are making our children sick. We are making our society ill and fat and chronically diseased. And if this doesn't stop, I don't know what the state the world's going to be in. But it's not one that I want to live in, and it's not one that I want to leave to my grandchildren. So I've got to do this to help people, not for any kickback for myself, but because it's the right thing to do. And it's the truth. So I will always speak the truth, whether or not people like it, whether or not people like me, I don't care. Like, I've just got to do what's right. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and hope that, one day half of the population wakes up, because I feel like it is so divided. Eating this way is so political. But kind of what you're saying, like, we need to wake up so people can be healthy. Like, it's just, I'm really like finding that passion lately. Before I was just like, oh, sharing my food and recipes. But the more I dig, it's like, this is fucked up. Like, this whole thing, you go down the rabbit hole, like, now
Yeah.
I'm giving myself goosebumps, but like, I just want to like shout this from the rooftops. And I also want to fucking like shake people, like, please wake up. Like, I don't need to give my kids donuts, even though they do sometimes. I don't need to have that be part of their diet for it to be balanced. Like, that's what chaps my ass. The kid thing we could go on for hours about. But
Yeah.
man, it's very, just from the comments I see every day, it's so concerning to see what is going on in people's heads and how they're just blindly following everything they're taught. And it's scary. It's
Or
really
the lack of thing going on in their head. Like, it's just like, what I always laugh is people are like, it's science. That's what I get. Like, it's science. And I'm like, science? is literally defined by questioning your hypothesis no matter the outcome. There
Yeah.
is no, like, it does not matter if you reached your conclusion and then you're on to the next thing. You need to question your conclusion, even if your previous project was to find that conclusion, you know? And so I love when people, you know, that's just what it's science, period. Your science is should be to literally question your science. That's all science is. And so it's just like a blind, we have blinders on, and
Yeah.
people are just like, oh my God, I can't believe you'd ever question science. Well, science is literally questioning everything that ever existed for forever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
There's
crazy.
no full stop on the end of science. And the other thing is it's like also if it worked, let's say that they were telling the truth with the food pyramid and it wasn't upside down and completely backwards, why would everyone be so sick? Like, wake up. Like, you just look at history a tiny amount, and you can see, even in pictures from the 70s of, like, you know, people on the
Everyone's
street
safe.
versus now, like, you know, like everyone was tanned and slim and reasonably healthy. You know, I saw a meme the other day which was like, it was like people waiting outside for a movie, right? The premiere of Star Wars or something like that, and something rather. And they showed one back in the 70s versus the, you know, into 2000s, and people are sick. Like, it's like you don't need a science degree to work out what's going on here. Something's not right. The kid thing is a real sensitive thing, and I think we could talk kid things all day, because I see people giving their children poison on a day-to-day basis, and it is so hard for me not to say anything because I know they don't want to hurt their child. I know they don't want to do. And if they knew what they were doing, like properly in their heart, knew what they were doing, they would not be giving their kid that lolly or that bloody, that fruit smoothie, or that, you know, that nut bar or seed thing that they think is healthy. And it's really, really, that's probably my hardest thing to deal with, is the kids situation. Especially when it comes to family, because I have a niece and nephew who I love, and they eat absolute junk. And this is my family. And it's a real interesting one too, because I've been in health for so long. My family's always listened to me about health, which is really interesting. They've always listened. And all of them have gotten pretty good health working with me. And then when it came to this, they were really resistant. And then when they finally have jumped on the bandwagon, my mother, for example, who is 62, she has dropped about 5 dress sizes. She looks like a completely different person. She's just moved back from Australia, and she's just transitioned onto heavy meat base, and it looks like someone's popped her with a pin. Like, she was such a dumpling. She was so round and inflamed. She had no neck. You know, she's just gone and got her hair cut short, and she's like, I've got a neck, Jess. And she's just like thrilled. And it's been so easy. There's no exercise, nothing. That's just by changing her food. And my sister's jumped on the bandwagon, and she said, I'm just going to try it for 30 days. She's like, but you told me vegetables are good, so I don't know that this isn't all bullshit. And I try and give her the information. I try and like show her where I was wrong, or what I got confused about, or where I stopped looking. And people don't want to hear it. So it's really hard, because my mum and my sister have made these changes with their diets, but then she's still feeding her kids bread and muffins and sugar and vegetables. And I'm just sitting there going, because I don't want them to get hurt.
It's hard, because that's what we're still like that too. And not crazy. Like, we're very conscious and try to keep it as healthy as possible. But there is a fear factor. Like, if I make my kids only have meat, like, I'm worried that they're not going to get enough. So I kind of get what?
Do you feel like that at the moment?
Kind of. Yeah, it would be scary to only give them meat, because I'm still new to the, it's still some conditioning going on, and you're just afraid to mess up with your kids. So I mean, mine still have fruit, and they do have some veggies. We're very conscious as far as they're not having like a lot of like quote unquote junk, but I guess you could still say what they're having would be called junk, even though we're mindful about it. So Yeah,
Yeah.
making
And
that switch for them scary.
that's with your awareness, that's with your current knowledge, you know, and even you are finding it difficult. So, you know, we can understand how everybody else is doing what they're doing. For me, we did the same thing with the kids. We slowly transitioned them off and we took out the most toxic plants first, and we'd keep in the low oxalate veggies and stuff, but they just started leaving them. So I'd make burgers, for example, and I'd have lettuce wraps for them, or maybe a cut up onion for them and a few other pickles that they could have. And they just started leaving them. And I'm like, you know, I'm just wasting this money now by buying you a bloody lettuce that cost me $8 and you're not even eating it. You know, and so they kind of did it themselves almost, like they just started leaving the veg. And we have never been heavy on fruit because I always understood fructose and how it gets transported and how it affects like so many things in our body and how negative it is. Like I've always known that fruit, beer, even if it's natural, is a sugar, and sugar is poisonous literally at a cellular level. So I've never been a big fruit person, so that was really easy for me to just not even, you know. And for them, they probably had a handful of blueberries every other week at the most. Like they were never big fruit people anyway, and so that's been really easy to transition them over. But the fact of the matter is like I just tell them, and they're a bit older than, you know, 10 and 7, my big girls. And Maya, she's 10, she notices now. So she ate half a lemon yesterday. She had all these little spots come up around her mouth and her lips were on fire. And she went, "Oh, Mum, I'm not eating." Because she'll have like half a lemon every other week because she loves lemons. She said to me yesterday, "I'm not eating this anymore." She threw it out the car window when we were driving. I was like, oh, okay. So she's getting rid of stuff herself, you know, like even the bits that she has, which is nothing pretty much. So those realizations, and that's powerful because you're giving your children the choice and also the knowledge and also the understanding of why these things are happening in their bodies. And my daughter also notices, like, I've got tons of muscle tissue and I'm really strong and agile, and I can do 2 pull-ups, and she's really proud of herself. She's like, I can do this. And it's not like she trains or anything. Whereas, you know, her children the other age, same age, depleted, really little muscle tissue, like really like cognitive function really terrible, coordination really not great. And so she's noticing these things at 10 and going, oh, I want to thrive, I want to be really good, so I'm going to just eat meat. And she's now telling people, she's telling people about how plants have oxalates and they bind to calcium and create these little I'm like, oh my god, you know, like she knows a lot for a 10-year-old, and she is helping people and she just does it naturally. And she's gone, oh, you know, she goes to nature school on Thursdays and she's like, oh, everyone in my nature school's going carnivore and they've all thrown away their nuts and they're getting rid of this. And I'm like, oh my god, go Maya. She's 10 and she's like trying to change the world. So I think the kids, once they see and have a bit more understanding, they'll go along with it, and they are absolutely thriving and have had nothing, pretty much any vegetables or anything for, well, 6 months or more now. And they're in really, really good health. Like the little bumps that one of my girls had on her arms, like these little white bumps, have completely gone away. One of my daughters suffered a little bit of inflammation around her like throat and around her stomach. She did have health issues with her intestines when she was little, that have now gone away. Like, so, you know, I've seen their health improvements. And even my baby, her hair basically wouldn't grow because we got forced to put her on formula by a pediatrician when she was 5 months old. We got threatened with police involvement if we did not give her formula. So we were like literally threatened. And when we took her off that, and instead we made like these we call them, you know, bone broth, but make her a little bottle of bone broth with some butter in there and maybe some cream or coconut oil, not coconut oil, coconut milk, one of those things. And she'd have a little bit of salt and she'd have a little hot bottle it's like a little hot bottle of soup. When we swapped her out of the formula, which we were forced into for a couple of months, and started giving her this bone broth instead, her hair started to grow. And I was just like, oh my god. And, you know, rashes that eczema that she'd suffered with went away and stuff like that. And you just go, okay, I've got to get out of that conditioning from the powers that be or authority on the situation, because the fact of the matter is I know that my kids are getting everything they need to thrive. They're getting the best possible start in life, and I don't need other people to understand that, because I do. And I am their mother. So them turning around, I've had people go, oh, but we just feel bad because they're being left out. And I'm like, left out of what? Left out of poison? Or they're having a treat. Well, a treat is giving them something that's literally toxic for their cells, but it's a party, so why not? Like, no, I don't care. I don't care, because it's my job as their mother to give them the best possible opportunity in life, and I love them, and their health and happiness means everything to me, so I'm going to do what's right. And I don't care if it's popular or not. You can shove it up your butt. I don't care. I really don't care. So yeah, there have been altercations. I have had, people going, oh, well, we don't think that that's a whole diet, and we don't think that that's a great mental health way to be around food. And it's like, well, I think a worse state is to be psychologically and physically addicted to food. But, that's just me. The fact that my kids have every vitamin and nutrient their body can absorb it, and they're not fighting or competing for fuel, and they're not becoming sick and diseased. Yeah, I'm going to stay on this side of the fence. Thanks. And
we think you're right. We agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, you're slowly shifting my thoughts. I mean, because I get asked that a lot. If you think this is the optimal way to eat, then why aren't you feeding your kids this way? And I think part of it was because, well, this is new to me. Okay. It's not like I've been eating this way for 10 years and I'm still feeding it. Like, let's try this out on us. It goes against everything we thought. It's scary. But my thing also is, like, my 2-year-old, sometimes she'll eat like a burger patty and go to town, and sometimes she won't even like look at it. So for me, it's like, well, I still need to make sure she's getting some vitamins and minerals if she's going to have these like weird meat aversions. So it is just a little scary. You just worry that they get enough, but everything you're saying like totally makes sense. And I've even joked like, don't worry guys, they're not carnivore. I poison them a little bit on the weekends with, cinnamon rolls, so it's like, that's the way that's acceptable. I get told that they're going to call CPS on me, and my kids aren't even carnivore. So it's like, they're also comparing me to that vegan that was in Florida that just like killed her 7-month-old, however old. Yeah. So it's like, you get all that backlash too, that makes you kind of like question what you're doing, but you're definitely like, I'm waking up a little bit more.
And I understand that, because, judgment from society and people threatening you with like police involvement or SIPS involvement, it's absolutely disgusting. Like, it makes me so upset. But I understand the way that it is, because this is what we've been conditioned with. This is what the authorities tell us. We are meant to be able to trust them, that they're giving us information that's not going to harm us, but it does. And like, so I think the food thing for me, if people tried to threaten it, and I will share this with you, because I think it is important for people to understand that this is happening all over the world, and this isn't just you, Courtney, that's having it, is that when we sent the girls to school, when we moved here, we went and had a meeting, and we said to the, vice principals and the people, like, they have a very specific diet, and we send them with their lunch, and they're not to eat anything else at school, ever, like, never. They said, oh, but what about if we have a da-da-da? And I said, no. Oh, but can't they just have a da-da-da? No. And they look at you like, oh my God, you're the horriblest mother on the planet. Like, who is this person? But I just stand very strong in my convictions. And what I ended up having to do was actually get a letter from a scientific consultant in nutrition to say, look, in order to heal her daughter's stomach, this is what she needs, and giving that to the school to get them off my ass. Because
you have to almost say like, oh, it's an allergy thing, for people to just be like, okay, like, not ask questions.
Yeah. So like, apparently if they're allergic to nuts, nobody in the whole wing of the school is allowed nuts, or the whole school is allowed nuts. But, and it's so backward too, because you think of when we went to school, well, maybe not you, Devin, but me and Courtney went to school, this stuff wasn't available. Like, you didn't have cookies and crisps and chocolate bars in your lunchbox, and you didn't, it wasn't accessible. Like, you just didn't ever have that. And now that is more acceptable in someone's lunchbox than a steak. Like, what is going on with the world? It's mental.
I went to a private school and I like had I haven't given this a second thought, but we had hostess days. And it was so exciting because Hostess, like the company, they sell like honey buns and like what other things? Like I don't remember. I don't even Twinkies,
Ding dongs or
ding
whatever.
dong. And yeah, we had hostess days where like a hostess cart would come in and they would just like set up a table, and that was like you brought like they sent out a letter like hostess days, and we were just so excited to get our honey buns. And now I'm like thinking like, oh shit, like that really is like crappy. Like that's a really crappy thing to get your kids excited for, like it's not good at all. I've never thought about that until you said like the school thing. And I'm like, yeah, like we really did have those options.
About it. It's because it's so common. Yeah, and the birthday party thing is just like an excuse for them to just absolutely binge out on the most junk food. So my big girls are have got the same birthday. They're just born weirdly on the same day, 3 years apart. And so we had their birthday party. And normally we would do like options for other children. And I just said to my hubby, I was like, I'm not doing that this year. I'm not sitting there feeding other people's children junk. I can't do it anymore. I just sit there going, oh no. So like we made, so we did the carnival Scotch eggs. We made carnival pizzas. We had, all these different amazing things. We had pork rinds instead of crisps. We had cheese platters and stuff out. And then the only thing that I did was a cake. I made the girls gluten-free, but I made them a gluten-free cake, and they get cake on their birthday, but that is literally about it. You get cake on, that's it. And everybody absolutely loved it. And it wasn't why isn't there stuff for our children? Or the people even didn't notice so much that we weren't even catering for our kids. And they love it. And they're like, oh my God, have you got a recipe for this or that? And my sister actually made the carnival pizza for her child's birthday party because he was having a pizza party. She made one of the carnival pizzas so that my kids could have pizza, and everyone ate that one and left all the normal pizzas. So my daughter was like, I only got one slice of pizza. And I was like, oh, whoopsies, because people love it. So it's not like we're depriving our kids of anything. We are giving them every opportunity. So if you just flip it and start not really giving a crap what people think, because you know better, Court. You know better. And if you weren't worried about what other people thought, why would you do it? Like, that's why we do it. Because I've explained it to my daughter, like, this stuff is poisonous. It's like rat poisonous. Like, it's rat poison, basically, that you're feeding your child. If you knew you were giving them rat poison, would you stop immediately? 100%. If you found out, you would be appalled and you would shout at your mother, oh my God, this has got poison in it. It's the same thing. Our kids are eating poison and nobody's doing anything. We're all just watching. It's really, really twisted.
Just because it's made and it's sold and it's available doesn't mean we should have it. I mean, that's like, I don't know. I always kind of come back to this. It's like, oh yeah, I just dabble in heroin on the weekend because it's all about balance. I'm not going to do it every day, but just the weekend. So it's like just because things are available doesn't mean they need to be incorporated. But yeah, I feel like that's just a lot of work, and it's a lot of and switching things that like my oldest one is 4 that he already so am I never going to buy him a cake pop at Starbucks ever again, so it's like, I don't know, there's a lot to like figure out too.
And as well, it'll happen gradually, but what you'll start realizing is that's not a treat. Like, me never buying him a cake pop from Starbucks is me like giving him the best, and me giving or making him, my girls love your butter lollies. Like, they love the carnival pizzas. They love all those things, and they get so excited about them with carnival ice cream. And we've got we're going to try those meringues that have come. Like, we love it because it's exciting and new, and that they know that it's not hurting them. Because the thing that my daughter has finally got a grasp on too is that if she ate something that was really poisonous for her, and it killed her on the spot, then she wouldn't eat it. Let's say this rat poison is like condensed, but we think it's okay to spread that out and slow kill our children over 30, 40 years. Like, she's starting to put the pieces together herself. So, it will happen. It will happen, Courtney. Like when you're
And
ready
when
for
they'll realize how their body like feels too. Like, I mean, sometimes like, because I'm still giving my kids some of that crap. Like sometimes my kid won't even like finish an ice cream because he'll be like, oh, like I can feel that it's not making my body feel good. So they're aware, and we try to make them like, I don't know, just aware of things. Like, okay, you can have this, but I wouldn't eat it all. You're probably not going to feel good. Like you can tell that, and I can even see it in his like behavior, like things
it.
that I've wondered, is this like ADHD? But it's like, I wonder if it could be fixed with diet, which I'm sure it could. So,
Yeah. Well,
and
look,
everyone can find you at, was it the Carnivore Mummy?
yeah, it's just a U for American, not an O.
What's
So
that?
the mummy is MU, not MO, just
Yeah. Okay. All
spelling
right.
right.
Thank you
you,
so
Jess.
much.
Have a good
Bye.
one.